talk show podcast station. And we're bringing you daily health and information, where daily health is viewed as an ever-changing reality. Welcome. This is Daily Health. All information and resources are based on the opinions of the host, unless otherwise noted. All information is intended to motivate, encourage, and inspire positive change and a healthier lifestyle. Now, this podcast contains some quotations, images, and excerpts from copyrighted material. These uses fall well within the copyright doctrine of fair use. Fair use refers to the right to reproduce, use, and share. Welcome to all my new listeners and my day ones. If you are new here, thank you for being here. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to be here, and I, for one, appreciate you. Today's topic is Snapchat dysmorphia. Yes, everyone, this is a real thing. I know with everything we have going on, this is one thing that we don't need adding to the stress and anxiety that's going on, especially with our youth. Snapchat dysmorphia. Is the stress of social media driving teens to plastic surgery? Now, we've dealt with this topic before, but it was more so television, celebrities doing it, and teens wanting to do it because the celebrities are doing it. Well, now it's for a totally different reason. It's because of the Snapchat filters. Now, not to say that Snapchat is the cause of it, because there are other social media platforms that have filters as well. This is one of those things that involves self. Plastic surgeons are seeing more patients walk through their doors asking to look like their selfies. Yes, this is actually a growing mental health problem. Social media platforms like Snapchat allows users to filter their faces, airbrushing their complexions, adding fun graphics, and with some other platforms, it allows them to change how they look as far as making them slender, making them shorter, making the nose smaller, things of that nature. And so it kind of gives a false sense of self. You've never looked better. Your skin is poreless, your nose looks small, your lips look plump, and you're doe-eyed. You're ready to hit post for the world to see. So bring on the likes, right? Problem is this really you? It's not really you. It's the filters. With filters on social media like Instagram and Snapchat, flattering, lightning, perfect poses, and editing apps that can make you look like a thinner version of yourself, with perfect skin to boot. We've entered into the era of selfie perfection, but some experts say all this social media flawlessness is coming from our phones and invading our real lives. More people are thinking, I want to look like that, and going to great lengths to get there, which is actually an unhealthy trend. The trend, what some people are calling Snapchat dysmorphia, is real and getting more potent every year. According to 2017 data from the American Academy of Facial Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, 55% of facial plastic surgeons say patients have requested cosmetic procedures to look better on social media, an increase of 13% from the year before. Now, we're in 2020, and this data comes from 2017, so we've been dealing with this for a while. Now, a paper published in August 2018 in the journal JAMA Facial Plastic Surgery noted that airbrushing used to be just for celebs. People saw how perfect they looked on the covers of magazines, but knew it took a village to get them there. That certainly made its own impact on society's standards of beauty. But things have taken a different turn today. Filters, lighting, and other social media tricks have introduced this drive for perfection to the masses. A quick share on Instagram and the likes and comments start rolling in. These filters and edits have become the norm, altering people's perception of beauty worldwide. Now, like I said, this is an unhealthy trend because there's one thing to use it in fun, just to look at yourself and go, oh, okay, that's pretty, have a few friends like it, okay, cool. But to go outside of that and to actually go visit a plastic surgeon requesting to look like it, that's taking it too far, and it is unhealthy in so many different ways. The possible connection between stress and social media use is beginning to stem from that. While seeing your own imperfections in the mirror is nothing new, having the knowledge about what you could look like without them is. The more time people spend on social media, the more their brains are being affected by the content they are exposing themselves to. For some, this means it encourages them to view their own natural appearance as being unacceptable. Now, that was said by Patrick J. Byrne, MD, board member of the AAFPRS and professor and director of the Division of Facial Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine in Baltimore. When asked whether they felt bad about their appearance for any reason, the majority reported with a resounding yes. About 22% of respondents said they felt bad about themselves on a daily basis. Now, adding to the problem, there's a desire to repetitively view your social media accounts throughout the day as they update constantly. Now, in Everyday Health's stress survey, 57% of respondents, including baby boomers and those among Generation Z, reported looking at their social media accounts daily. What can be considered as the constant checker, as dubbed by the American Psychological Association, which represents 86% of people according to their 2017 Stress in America report, experience more daily stress than someone who looks at it less often. In fact, 42% say they worry about the negative impact social media has on their health. Now, only 27% of non-regular checkers say the same. Now, let's add to it aesthetic pressures, and you have a recipe for stress, anxiety, as well as mood problems. Now, plastic surgeons are seeing this play out in their offices on the regular. Typically, when patients come in for a consult, they hold a mirror and, using a Q-tip, point to the areas they like to change. Today, these flaws may only be seen in a selfie, not a mirror. Patients find it far easier to show me with photos on their phone. They point out the imperfections. The nasal tip is too big, the nose is crooked, they have a double chin, that in some cases are next to impossible to see in person, says Dr. Byrne. This may be an inevitable result of spending a good chunk of time looking at your own photos, he says. Dwelling on those perceived imperfections or flaws can make anyone feel terrible. This habit can trigger a sense of insecurity, which can lead to a stress response in the body, says Siri Shepard, PhD, a body image specialist and psychologist in Los Angeles. This can lead to a cycle pattern of negative thoughts. You're stressed about a flaw. Feel as if you need to change your appearance. Then spend time and resources doing so. which can create more stress, she says. Now, the desire to fix these imperfections may hit young women the hardest, says Mark Schwartz, MD, a plastic surgeon in New York City, who adds that this group often asks for injectable fillers and Botox, as well as breast augmentation and liposuction to appear like the celebrities they see on social media. They have grown accustomed to seeing themselves in somewhat distorted way on a tiny screen and in photos that have been edited to remove imperfections and take advantage of lightening tricks, he says. Now, the difference today in the fixation on the small things that people may not have bothered to become consumed with before, patients are more obsessed about small imperfections. They like the way they look after they experiment with filters and editing apps. Their tolerance for a bump on their nose, acne breakouts, a little thigh bulge, or thin lips seem to be a little lower than previous generations. So, can Snapchat trigger body dysmorphic disorder? And that's a really great question because evidence is pointing to yes. Many people are concerned that relying on these filters and projecting a heavily edited image of yourself to the world can not only severely impact user self-esteem, but their mental health too. The pervasiveness of these filtered images can take a toll on one's self-esteem, make one feel inadequate for not looking a certain way in the real world, and may even act as a trigger and lead to body dysmorphic disorder. Now, body dysmorphic disorder, BDD for short, is a mental illness that can lead affected individuals to have frequent thoughts about their appearance, seek constant reassurance from others that they look okay, check their appearance in the mirror or other reflective surfaces repeatedly, avoid social situations to prevent others from seeing them, and use hats, scarves, and makeup to conceal the perceived flaw. People with BDD also often seek cosmetic surgeons to fix their perceived imperfections, which is very unhealthy. When you look at yourself in the mirror, you should see a beautiful person inside and out. Beauty is not everything. It is not the end-all, be-all. It's really about your character, how good of a person you are, how you treat others, that sort of thing. But these filters and everything else is running amok. Now, IOCDF notes that while typically everyone has at least one part of their appearance that they don't like, BDD goes beyond seeing and even being bothered by physical imperfections. Those who have BDD are consumed by thoughts about their flaws, which may cause several emotional distress and interfere with daily functioning. And that's according to Anxiety and Depression Association of America, ADAA for short. It's something that affects about 1 in 50 people, most young and women, as well as men in equal amounts. The ADAA says someone with BDD is likely to respond to social media images in a far more intense way, stated by Dr. Shepard. The idea that one is being shamed for their appearance and doesn't match the standard of perfection can increase the risk of depression and cause elevated levels of anxiety and a general distortion of their perception of themselves. Yet the development of BDD is multifactorial. Genetics and brain chemistry can play a role. For instance, it often co-occurs with other conditions like depression, eating disorders, and obsessive compulsive disorder. In fact, BDD is considered an obsessive compulsive related disorder, notes the International OCD Foundation. Both BDD and OCD are marked by obsession. In people with BDD, this obsession is body focused. Now, previous research published in the journal JAMA Psychiatry analyzed the brain scans of 12 people with BDD and concluded that these patients do indeed process others' faces differently compared with control subjects. But that clearly was before the era of selfies. A more recent study published in July 2015 in the journal Psychological Medicine found that both those suffering from anorexia nervosa or BDD have abnormal activity in the area of the brain that processes images as a whole. They may be wired to home in on the flawed details rather than the overall picture. So it's pretty easy to see why social media can be so damaging for people with BDD. Whether Snapchat is a trigger is up for debate, but it's likely not the only driving factor. Social media can prompt repetitive behaviors in someone with BDD, like making comparisons with others. This can make people worry about how they look. And we really shouldn't do that to ourselves. Or the people that we love and care for. This is a pretty serious issue and should be taken it shouldn't be taken lightly. Now, many patients report that social media images are a source of stress for them. While what happens in the brain of those with BDD when viewing social media hasn't been studied, it's possible that the activity increases in part of the brain known as the orbitofrontal cortex and caudate, areas that tend to be hyperactive in people with BDD, which probably reflects obsessional thoughts. For these people, habits like taking excessive selfies and analyzing them for flaws can be damaging. They often make people feel worse and can fuel more BDD repetitive preoccupations. And that's because there are so many gorgeous celebrities to compare oneself with. It isn't surprising that people with BDD and those without BDD too often feel worse after they compare themselves with these images. In addition, people with BDD not only underestimate their own attractiveness, but also tend to overestimate the attractiveness of others, which makes the problem even worse. Now, Dr. Weasel has pointed out that research published in December 25th in the International Journal of Eating Disorders show that social media is correlated with the body dissatisfaction and the desire to change one's appearance. But this alone doesn't mean someone has BDD. For those who do have BDD, social media use may go hand in hand with obsessive comparisons with celebrities or friends who too may be spending hours curating, enhancing, and retouching their photos. BDD can lead these patients to engage in another compulsion, seeking plastic surgery. See, the problem is we found plastic surgery doesn't make BDD go away, but it intensifies it. It's tempting to call your filtered photos the best version of yourself, but what is that really saying? It's the extent to which we are bothered by our flaws that determine if this is problematic. Those with BDD may be so consumed by their appearance that it impacts their relationships, work, as well as social life. But even if someone doesn't develop BDD, the desire to airbrush your flaws away remains damaging. The trend may be encouraging young people to put far too much emphasis on their own personal appearance than they should. Now, granted, this has always been a concern in our society, but this obsession for which we are biologically predisposed can be perversely incentivized by the effects of our likes and follows on one's behavior and priorities. Now, so that makes me wonder, are plastic surgeons then screening for BDD? And what about the surgeons that are pretty much running with this and just doing the surgeries to make money? And I wonder how many plastic surgeons are turning people down because they really don't need it. Which are all really great questions. If anyone has the answer, or you have any feedback, or you just want to give your opinion on it, definitely let me know. You can send me an email on oneradiotalk@gmail.com. Place it to the attention of Daily Health, Snapchat Dysmorphia, or if you're listening and watching this on YouTube, leave me a comment down in the comment section and let me know how you feel, or if you've experienced some of this, or if you know someone. And if you know any tricks, tips, or ways of how to deal with this, let me know and I will definitely share it to help others. Now, some plastic surgeons are screening patients for BDD. Now, even before Snapchat filters were a thing, plastic surgeons were aware of the need to screen patients for BDD. It emphasized the need for these patients to be identified before undergoing surgery. Plastic surgery is not a treatment for BDD, but can exacerbate it. So if you are seeking plastic surgery and using a selfie as a reference point, a good plastic surgeon should provide a realistic idea of achievable results. I prefer to have a discussion about how all human beings have facial imperfections and most are simply irrelevant. The existence of an imperfection is not an indication for an intervention, says Dr. Byrne. Aesthetic plastic surgeons today need to be part surgeon and part therapist, adds Schwartz. He says that surgical consultations should last at least an hour to talk about realistic goals. If I don't think their requests are reasonable, I'll always tell patients that up front. Surgery is serious business that comes with some risks. There is never a guarantee and is not a perfect science. It isn't something that should be considered lightly, he stated, which is true. It's very true, because if we look at some of the celebrities who have undergone the knife on several different occasions, who kept going under the knife, and you look at their pictures before any surgeries and after their, let's say, final surgery, you're looking at them going, they were beautiful. Keyword were. They were beautiful. But now, not so realistic. And which may deter some people, but then in the end, some people, they go ahead and do it anyway. Now, there's a way that you can change your social media habits for a better self-image. If you think you may have BDD, and for those who don't know, BDD is body dysmorphic disorder, seek help from a mental health professional. But even if you don't have BDD and feel like your social media presence is making you hyper aware of perceived flaws, you can take steps to develop a better relationship with your social media use. And here's how. For one, be realistic. You're not going to give up all of your social media accounts. Instead, think about your screen use. How can you be mindful and intentional when you're on? Rather than automatically grabbing your phone during moments of downtime, ask yourself why you're opening up that app and what you need to accomplish. Inventory your self-worth. This takes some introspection, but ultimately it's worth it. Take stock of the major areas of your life that make up who you are, reminding yourself in an image-obsessed world that you're more than your appearance sounds. It sounds cheesy, but it's important. Give yourself a break. Some of the things we'd say to ourselves are things we'd never say to another person. Practice mindfulness for 1 or 2 minutes a day. Focus on the thoughts and feelings that pop into your head criticizing your appearance. Notice them, but don't judge or criticize yourself for having them. Part of being human is being imperfect. And another thing, don't go there. If you haven't started using filters or editing apps, don't even start. It's sort of being proactive. Now, consider curating your feed. It's impossible to get away from messages about society's standards of beauty, and you shouldn't aim to avoid them at all costs either. The ultimate goal is to be able to see the messages and not compare yourself with them. But if your social media feed is overrun by people who make you feel bad about yourself, ask yourself why you continue to follow them. Or even more so, why do you allow yourself to feel bad about something that's really kind of irrelevant if you think about it? There's really no beauty standard. So don't stress yourself. You might consider following other accounts that reinforce positivity and are not image focused. So with all of this in mind, let's try to tell ourselves something positive. You live and stand on what you tell yourself, so make sure it's something positive. Accept yourself for who you are. Love yourself unconditionally. And then you have less of a risk of being or getting Snapchat dysmorphia. Talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to your kids, anyone who you may see going through this. Talk to them openly, honestly, and be realistic with them. Be truthful with them, as well as be truthful with yourself if it's you. Love yourself unconditionally. If you can't love yourself unconditionally, you won't be able to love anyone else unconditionally. Our flaws is what makes us different from everybody else. Who wants to be exactly the same as everybody else? Let's not even go there. This has been our topic, Snapchat dysmorphia. Learn to love yourselves and each other.